Sales is it's not about selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about the decisions. And those are not made really on the conscious level. They're made emotionally, generated by the unconscious or subconscious level. I use those terms interchangeably. They mean the same thing. So NLP is a way of addressing the unconscious mind, bypassing the critical factor, all the cynicism, skepticism, lack of focus. One of the big things that's an enemy of any sale is not your competition or even your own lack of confidence. It's the fact that your prospects just don't have the focus they used to have. You don't have time to take 30 minutes to establish rapport.
Welcome to CRE Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsurancerisk.com. Today, my guest is Paul Ross. Paul is an author, speaker, elite sales trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Paul about how to get your prospects to convince themselves to buy using the power of subconscious programming. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CRE Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. And you can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Paul Ross. Welcome to CRE Radio.
Thank you. And I just want to say that before we begin this exploration of subconscious persuasion and communication together today, that I am so thrilled to be your guide and your teacher when a great learning is taking place. So thank you so much. I love doing this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hey, before we get started, if you could share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I actually got my start in persuasion and influence and the rest of it when I couldn't get a date when I was between the ages of 18 and 27, something like that. I was super shy, not only didn't know how to be persuasive or emotionally evocative in my communication, I just didn't know how to communicate other than with facts, data, figures, lecturing, etc. So I stumbled onto a discipline called NLP, and using NLP, I used it for my dating life. And for about 20 years, I'm just going to say it, dating and pickup coach. I like to surprise my guests with that. But if you think about it, there's a great correlation between sales and a date. A date, in a sense, is the biggest sale you ever make in your life. Not to say you shouldn't be authentic, but think about it. You have to do your prospecting, establish rapport, ask the right questions, do your presentation, make your trial close, overcome objections, and hopefully, if you're looking for it, get referrals. So earlier on in my career, I began to get emails from students who said, look, I've used your stuff. Here's pictures of my wife, my family. And by the way, I've been using this in my sales, and I've upped my sales by 30, 40. Some people have tripled them. There's a place I'll give out the URL later where one of my VIP clients increased his sales by 2,000% in about 4 months working with me. That sounds impossible. You can go and look at the testimonial for yourself. So that's how I mapped. I started with dating, and then I saw the correlation, mapped it over into sales, and it's a completely different bat bleep crazy way of looking at sales and influence.
No, that's quite the start there from the dating and then moving into the sales. But like you said, there's definitely a similar track there. So my first question to you is, what is neurolinguistics, and
Wow.
how do you define what it is?
Reminds me of an old joke. I can make this joke because I'm Jewish. If you ask two rabbis about their answer to a question, you get 50 different opinions. So my view of NLP is it's essentially a study of how language structures consciousness, shapes decisions, and drives behavior. That's the first thing. The second thing, it is a technology for modeling human excellence. So there's a series of questions and observations you do with someone who has a talent. For example, they're natural salespeople. Now, naturals don't know the structure of their own talent. They just say, well, you just do it. That's not very informative if you want to learn. So NLP has a series of processes that lets you extract out the nature of that talent, distill it to its essential pieces, and then teach it to others who want to achieve that level of excellence. And then the third thing, NLP has a model of hypnosis that enables you to do hypnosis in a very elegant way that doesn't involve look at this watch and you are getting sleepy. It's very conversational, very powerful. You can use it for dating, you can use it for relationships, negotiation, sales, extraordinarily powerful. Now, that's my view of NLP. I've been doing it for about 33 years. People have different views. It's not an orthodox, rigid set of beliefs that you have to take on.
Got it. So you've been doing it for about 33 years. How long?
Started in 1987, 88. I don't even know how many years. That's 35 years. By the way, today is my 65th birthday. So
Happy birthday.
I don't, this is September 20th. I don't know when this will go out in the air, but happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday. So how long has neurolinguistics been a topic of study in science?
I think it started in the mid 70s. I wouldn't call it a science. And the people of Bandler and Grinder who originated it have said over and over, when people say it's not scientifically proven, they'll say, of course not. It's a model. It's no more scientifically proven than Kung Fu or karate. It's a way of doing things. They never claimed it was science, and it's not.
Got it. So how does it work?
Specifically for sales or in general? For healing?
In general, yeah.
Wow, that's such a broad question and calls for a narrative that we wouldn't have time to cover if we did 5 episodes in an hour. But to distill it down for sales, for me, this is just my use of it. Sales is it's not about selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about the decisions. And those are not made really on the conscious level. They're made emotionally, generated by the unconscious or subconscious level. I use those terms interchangeably. They mean the same thing. So NLP is a way of addressing the unconscious mind, bypassing the critical factor, all the cynicism, skepticism, lack of focus. One of the big things that's an enemy of any sale is not your competition or even your own lack of confidence. It's the fact that your prospects just don't have the focus they used to have. You don't have time to take 30 minutes to establish rapport because they've drifted off. Is this being videoed as well as audioed? I'm assuming it is.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm holding up a device here, a smartphone, that is the number one enemy to you being successful in sales. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, this is how I outreach to my clients. I text them, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I mean. Here's what I mean. We have so many interruptions. How many times, I'm just going to ask you, how many times, to be honest, during the day, do you check your phone?
More than I care to admit. I mean, it's
right.
just, it's
and every
constantly.
time you do that, you get a little hit of dopamine, so it makes it addictive. We have Facebook Instant Messenger, Instagram, TikTok, damn TikTok. They're a instrument of the Chinese Communist Party, and I detest them. That's just my politics. I'm going to invade your show with my politics. We have dating apps. At my age, I don't bother with it. But you see, for YouTube, we have something called YouTube Shorts. Why do you think YouTube did that? Because they realized people don't have time to watch a 5-minute, the focus to watch a 5-minute YouTube. Now you get 30 seconds to hit them with a short. So you need to do something to create a state of consciousness in your prospect that establishes focus. Now, I can't directly say, well, Mr. Annoying, you're going to focus in on every word I say, forget all distractions, and believe every word I say. They'd kick me to the curb, and rightly so. But if I said, Mr. Annoying, as we're sitting here sharing this communication together, I don't know at which points you might find yourself really focusing in on all the things that interest you the most. But as that's taking place, can I ask that you please share the questions that naturally arise when a great exploration is being made together? Now, I did several things there. I slid in the suggestion that they would focus. I also use words like we, explore, our, conversation. They all imply a relationship, that we're all on the same side of the table. I didn't say, as I make this presentation to you. There's no relationship implied in those words. So through the power of suggestion, in the first minute of conversation, you can imply a relationship on the unconscious level and create states of focus. Why wait for a half an hour to create know, like, trust, and focus? We don't have time anymore.
Well, that's fascinating. And like you said, with the selection of the words that you used, primarily, driving that kind of that we're in agreement, we're on the same page, as opposed to an adversarial relationship there.
Right.
So is the use of neurolinguistics primarily then your word selection and trying to...
It's also, yes, but it's also knowing how to pay attention, exquisite attention to nonverbal cues. And I don't mean body language. A lot of body language is mythology. It doesn't work. But if I see things like blink rate increase tends to mean that the person is uncomfortable, stressed. Doesn't mean they're being dishonest. It just means they're under stress. They're under stress, excuse me. I didn't pronunciate that correctly. If you see a flattening out of the face, like it looks like it's ironed out, and a lack of blink rate, I know that person is focused in, even in a semi-hypnotic state. So it's also a way of designing your own state of consciousness. The most important thing in any sale is how you show up. What state of mind do you want to be in? And I say the best state of mind is to be grounded and to have a relatively quiet mind, a relatively small amount of internal dialogue. Because if you're thinking to yourself, are they following me? Do they like my presentation? Am I going to make the sale? There's only so much real estate in consciousness. You won't have the focus to pay attention to when your prospect is really responding or feeling skeptical or any of those other things. So a lot of NLP is about, as I apply it, is, and I teach my VIP clients to do it. And by the way, I'm so busy at this point, I work with 9 clients a year. I take 3 months of vacation every year. So the way I teach my VIPs is to design their own state first. How you show up. I'll give you a metaphor if I can, because I teach in metaphors. Can I do that?
Yes.
So let's say I have a sheet of cardboard and I have a sheet of gold foil. This is not a trick question. And I want to conduct a current of electricity. Which one of those two mediums, two substances, is going to conduct the electricity? It's not a trick question. The cardboard or the gold foil?
Gold foil.
Exactly. We know intuitively that that's the case. So consider your state of consciousness, your state, to be like that cardboard or that gold foil. Do you want to, and your words are going to be the electricity that you want to conduct to your client. Do you want to be in that cardboard state of being overinvested, thinking I've got to win, I've got to win? By the way, champions are interested in the result. They're invested in the skill. In a breakfast of bacon and eggs, the chicken is interested, the pig is invested, as I like to teach. So how do we design our own state? And I say, get out of the cardboard state of being invested in the sale, the state of being overexcited and too enthusiastic. Enthusiasm can ruin rapport and can destroy a sale, because enthusiasm can come off as being just too interested in winning. It puts you into the frame of looking desperate and one down. There's no equality in status. And I'm not sorry to say it, sorry, but not sorry. The reality is, in any transaction, relationship, friendship, sales, whatever, there's a power dynamic. It's either going to be equal or subordinate, or one of the people is going to be of higher status. We're not aware of the role of status. It's automatically going to work against us. These are things you're not supposed to talk about in sales, but you know what? I don't give a damn. My mother taught me to be an iconoclast, to think outside the box, color outside the lines, disconnect the dots, and I love doing that.
So in the power dynamic of the relationship, is there a preference for position, or is it more a matter of just an awareness that's key to being able to utilize neuro?
It's not an either or.
Okay.
It is both. So there are times in a sale where I may want to give the appearance of being subordinate. One of the ways to answer an objection is to say, you know what, Mr. Butterface, I'm tired of saying Mr. Smith, I need to apologize to you. I've failed you. I failed you because I haven't been able to show you the vision of what this can do for you and just how clearly the ROI is worth the investment you're going to make today. So let me make it up to you by backing up and showing this to you in a way where you can clearly understand a great decision's being made. So there is giving the appearance of being subordinate where I'm actually leading them. So that's one way. Another way is to set the frame where you don't need them. Now, you're not going to say, I don't need you. But I used to work with real estate professionals. I still do. If you're doing at least high 7 or 8 figures, then you can apply to work with me. But in any case, oftentimes they would get something like, well, why should I go with you? Why should I list with you? And instead of saying, well, we've sold 5 homes in your neighborhood at beyond market price, and look at our portfolio, blah, blah, blah. First, I teach to say, so when they hear the question, why should we work with you? My response is, well, I can't be the one to say, well, you might find yourself making that decision. You're the only one who could recognize that's the best choice. So thinking about it like that, why don't we have a look at just what we can do for you? So I'm implying by saying that, when I say I'm not the one who can find yourself making that decision, I'm giving the suggestion that I don't care. I'm implying that I don't care. You're going to do it for your own reasons. Does that make sense? Which puts me in a higher status. Rather than begging to be hired, I'm saying, hey, you're going to make that decision for yourself. I'm not saying it directly. I'm implying it. I'm suggesting it.
Right. No, and you're kind of you are like taking the energy out of it and deferring to them, but also the word selection you're using there of I'm not I'm not going to do that.
I can't be the one to find yourself deciding that that's what you're going to do.
Right, but I'm not the one that can. Yeah, but and then the implication of you will find yourself.
Yes.
Find it. That's
yes.
I'm guessing. So when you use
now, can I put a pin in that?
Yeah.
I teach my dating students this. When I used to hear from women, give me your number, I know that's an excuse that they're not going to call. So I want to break that frame, because the frame right there if I leave it there, is they have something that I want and they're not accepting my asking for it. I turn it around and say, now, Mary, why would I put the burden of making sure we get to spend time together on your shoulders? Isn't that my work as the man? So the implication of that is that Mary wants to make sure it happens so much. She wants to get the number so she can make sure that she calls me and that she makes it happen. So I'm flipping the frame there completely. And I'm breaking her pattern. I'm doing a pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupts create momentary confusion and they break rapport. It's not true that you must always have rapport. Sometimes it's not only important, it's necessary and even enjoyable to break rapport.
So you mentioned pattern interrupt. We've talked about the power dynamics, focus, and these different elements. How much of the conversation are you taking in and processing, trying to then meet the subject, the prospect where they are, and then I guess apply some of the language and to kind of reposition them? Is it a constant from like the initial that you're taking in this information to try and read them how they
It's
are?
constant. It's a constant, and you have to understand that the way I teach it takes time. It's like learning. I'm not going to say that I'm going to transform what you do in one session.
Sure.
It's learning to pay attention in a different way, learning to think a different way, and then learning to speak in a new language. It's not the easiest thing. When you have me as a guide, it's achievable rather quickly. I try not to work with anyone for longer than 90 days because I do things in quarters. It's the only way I can take on 9 clients, three every quarter. But I want it done as efficiently, as quickly as possible. But it's not going to happen instantaneously. I've been doing it 35 years, so naturally, it's something that's it's more than second nature. It's how I think now.
What I was going to say is that when it really becomes most effective is when how long does it take one to become an effective?
Depends on who you train with.
Okay.
If you train with some schmuck, look, if you're willing to pay top dollar and you will train with me, I can get you to a good working level of skill where you're improving your sales anywhere from 30 to 50% in 4 months. I've done it before. Go to paulrossresults.com and you'll see just one example. You have to have a really good trainer who knows this stuff. And also knows how to teach. There's a saying that those who don't know how to do teach. That's not true. Those who really know how to do feel compelled to teach because they see the results it makes and the impact. But the skill of teaching is not the same skill as the skill of selling. I happen to be one of those people who over 35 years has learned how to teach. And in my teaching the guys, I'm just going to say at pickup and seduction, these are some of the most damage blocked people in the world. I really had to learn how to teach those people and get them up and going quickly. So the answer to your question is, it depends on who's training you.
All right. So as far as the disposition of the student, is there a kind of a success spectrum if somebody is really struggling or really wanting, or how do you?
Okay. Absolutely. Well, this gets back to being in a point in my career where I can select who I work with. And one of the number one criteria is they have to be willing to put aside conventional ways of thinking and actually get excited with the unknown and with the unconventional, get excited with something that requires them to color outside the lines, disconnect the dots, break the old paradigm. So they have to be someone who's really open to new ideas, sort of like what they would call an early adapter. My clients tend to be people who are already super successful, but they're not happy with where they're at. They want the cutting edge next thing. So I would say that, and then you have to be willing to put in the work. It doesn't have, You have to. It's work. If you're not willing to put in the work, I wish, bless your heart, I wish you well. I want everyone to be happy, but you have to put in the work. You can't be a lazy ass and get this.
Sure, sure. So when one of your students, you know, I don't know if the word is masters the material, but actually, you know, is doing the work, um, is it, does the conversation become more of a game from a standpoint of, because when I think of like the dating thing, you know, from if you're struggling with that, it's like, you know, kind of the weight of that. But if you're having success, I could see it becoming more of the game of,
Absolutely. There is a huge joy in doing the doing the unexpected and breaking other people's patterns. One of the things I've heard from my students is, you know what, Paul, I got to tell you the truth. I hope this doesn't offend you. I didn't believe that this would work. And the first few times it really worked, I closed some huge sales. I had to bite my cheeks to prevent myself from laughing. So you really have to have that mindset where uh, you're willing to step out into the unknown and do it with a sense of fun and not have to win right away.
so assuming you're in a situation, whether it be sales or dating, and you are one-on-one with your prospect or your you know prospective client or date. um I mean, it would seem like as a one-on-one, I could see this being a um you know, working from the standpoint you there's some control. I'm assuming that there's some control that is gained by knowing how to use the
Absolutely.
tools that then
Absolutely.
ensure your success or the outcome that
Absolutely.
you're looking for.
Absolutely. And you can call it control, you can call it exquisite skill, you can call it whatever you want. I prefer to think of it as engineering. I'm engineering my result, and I'm doing it in a way that's entertaining for me and ultimately results in a win for the client. I'll tell you something. One of the number one blocks to making a sale is, on some level, your client doesn't believe they deserve to have the outcome that you can get from them. Never underestimate how clients don't believe they deserve they can get it, or they're too confused to get it. For me, sales is not just about sliding my ideas into the other person's mind. Here comes the real kicker. It's about expanding their consciousness to include new possibilities and new ideas. And to the extent that you're expanding someone's consciousness beyond where they believed they had to stop, where they didn't deserve, where they didn't think it was possible. See, people have beliefs about what's possible for them and in the world, what they're capable of, who they are, their identity, and then what they deserve. When you expand that for people, it's actually an act of healing. The idea that selling in the right way can be an act of healing, that you can essentially have a healing aspect to what you do, is bad. Can I curse a little bit on your show?
Works, yeah, for me.
It's batshit crazy. But in fact, I believe it to be true. And notice the reframe. How can you be afraid to elicit or engineer a sale when you also know it has an aspect of assisting that other person by it? And those changes, if you do them right, tend to generalize out unconsciously. So they begin to believe on the unconscious level that they can do things that they didn't know they can, if you're at a really high level of skill. So sales, in a sense, is healing, and it's even heroic. Now, if you wake up every morning and say, I've got to make a sale today, or I'm a great salesperson, that's okay. That second one. But when you wake up in the morning, you say, I'm a healer and a hero when I assist my clients in making better decisions. And that's what I'm going to do today. You're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. Keep that in mind, and that leads to the conclusion, since decisions are made on the unconscious level, you have to be able to address people's unconscious minds. If you're not doing that, you're leaving a tremendous amount of success on the table.
Oh, it makes sense. I'm curious. You are a teacher of the neurolinguistics. Um, are you aware when someone is also a student of neurolinguistics and is
Oh,
engaging you? Are you able to detect that?
I can smack them around like I'm a Jedi and they're a beginner. Yes, absolutely. But if they do it in a skilled way, I'll reward them and say, you know what, that was pretty good. I'll give you a B plus and a pat on the head. But they're not going to do anything, excuse me, that I don't catch. If they do it exquisitely well, good for them. I give them points.
So I'm curious. I know I've heard of the topic for a while, and there's different parts of it. I heard of something like anchoring, like if you're trying to get a establish a position, or and I don't even remember, I don't even know how it's used, but there was just this concept of anchoring to some sort of a thought or a belief or whatever. And I guess the implication of anchoring was trying to establish a thought, but then having something to keep coming back to, and you know, a reference point to where over time the other person would.
With respect, let me do a useful interruption here.
Sure.
You're overcomplicating it.
Okay.
Anchoring is a natural thing that happens anyway, even without intent. You listen to a certain song that you used to hear when you were dating someone special, and it triggers those feelings. Anchoring is just associating something with a certain state of mind or a certain emotion. That's all it is. It can be, for me, I anchor with shifting my voice tone or the position from which I'm speaking physically. I can anchor to a contract. I can elicit really, really good feelings. And as I'm doing so, just tap the contract. So I'm taking all those good feelings of trust, of excitement, of can't wait to move forward and sign. I simply anchor it to the contract by holding it up or very subtly tapping it, indicate or self-pointing. Now, I'm not calling in an airstrike. It's subtle. Subtle is significant. Subtle is powerful. That's why the title of the book, and I'm an idiot for not having one present with me. The title of my book is Subtle Words That Sell, not Power Words That Sell. Subtle is powerful.
Got it. Um, for the most part, we've been talking about what I believe to be like a one-on-one kind of conversation. Um, does the neuro linguistics does it also work in a one-to-many?
Wow, I've sold so much on from stage. Yes, absolutely. So let's say you're doing a presentation. Let me contrast the typical way of doing things with the effective way using NLP, at least the way I teach. So a typical thing would be you come on, you make some jokes to warm up the audience, then you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Bob Cyclops. I work for Spacely Space Rockets. Today we're going to be showing you a presentation of our newest software that's going to enable you to get really excited because it's going to increase your productivity of your laziest workers by 15%. You're already tuned out. Because when I say I and presentation, it's all about, oh, he's going to lecture us and tell us something you do to someone. I instead would start out by teaching my students to say something like, hey, my name's Bob. Hey, hope you're all doing well. Just wanted to say that before we begin our exploration together, pause right there. We, exploration together. These imply a relationship. We, that's something I am doing with the audience, begin our, not my, but our, again, implying a relationship. Exploration. Now let's think about this. For every exploration, there must be a leader. Someone's got to lead it. And that implies what? For every leader, there must be what?
Follower.
Exactly. I'm implying to their unconscious that they're not only interested, that they're my followers. See how this works? Before we begin our exploration together today of what this is that's going to benefit you so much, may I ask that will you promise me to do just one thing? Will you please share the questions that naturally arise when a great decision's being made? So I didn't say ask the questions, did I?
Nope,
I
sure.
share the questions. Asking is something I do to someone. Sharing is something we do together. So I am very cleverly, subtly, consistently throughout one sentence making multiple suggestions. There's a law in hypnosis. I'm enjoying this, by the way. This is my jam, doing this and talking about it and teaching it and coaching it. There's a law in hypnosis called the law of compound suggestion. And that law simply states that each suggestion builds on the power of the prior suggestion. And my learning, my teaching to you out there in the audience is that if you stack 3 suggestions that have a strong emotional charge, in this case, a positive one, the unconscious must then not only become suggestible, it must comply. So beyond rapport is compliance. Rapport is only useful if it gets compliance. And compliance is a very strong state where the person is really motivated to basically do what you're telling them to do. Now, we can have an ethical discussion. Is that fair? Well, it depends on how you aim it and what your outcome is. A knife, a blade, a very sharp blade, can be used as a precise surgical instrument and save a life, or you could do that. So this is very powerful. Yes, it's subject. It is possible to manipulate and harm people with it. That's why I screen my clients very carefully. I have ways of screening for ethics and to make sure they're not psychopathic. There's many, many different tests that I put potential clients through. So I'm just going to say to apply and to get me to the point where I'm going to say, okay, you're going to have to really get vetted carefully.
No, I'm kind of curious. You mentioned in the beginning talking about like a natural salesperson. Do you find that that their skills kind of follow neurolinguistics naturally?
I think it's sort of a myth that there's a natural salesperson. I think there are people who are naturally more willing to take risk, and they're able to delay gratification and to project a future where eventually they'll have the success, and somehow they can connect each step with the future that they make very real for themselves. That's the real skills. Not even confidence. It's about motivation in a specific way that's not reliant on the events of the day or their feelings in the moment. And it's about a vision that's linked to certain values. It's not just about they want a bigger house or a bigger car. That's okay. But they understand why that's a value to them, what that would allow them to really experience, whether that be status or contributing to their family or whatever it is, freedom to travel. They understand the ultimate value of being successful, and their vision matches their values. They are what I call not confident. Confident, who cares? Aligned. They're aligned. And I'm just going to make the bold claim that I think I'm the only person who teaches alignment. And the final skill set they naturally have, somehow they built a way to learn from their error. Somehow, now I know how to unpack it. And remember, I had to teach the most impacted guys, the guys who were terribly screwed up in the head, how to get them to learn from their mistakes and stop repeating them. So I think natural salespeople just happen to have all those things. They couldn't teach it to you. They couldn't unpack it. They just somehow have picked it up, maybe from a mentor or a role model in their life. Somehow they just naturally get it.
Got it. In the practice of neurolinguistics, is there one, I guess, kind of a trait that you find that is the most difficult for people when they're learning it? Is it, you mentioned the time thing. I guess that's one of the things I'm thinking of, is like if people are thinking result oriented, they're wanting it to happen right now as opposed to, letting it take its course.
Well, there are several factors, but for me, The big one is they don't know how to have fun stepping into the unknown. The people, my mentor, Richard Bandler, who's the co-creator of NLP, who I was honored to have on my podcast, The Influencer's Edge. I had no idea when I started learning from him 35 years ago that one day I'd get to interview him on my show. The whole idea I would say, you flipping crazy, is the ability, though, the answer to your question is, can you learn to not take yourself seriously? Richard taught me a few things. And one of the things he taught me is, if you're serious, you're in a world of shit. You can be thorough without being serious. That opened my eyes and changed my whole orientation. You can be thorough without being serious. You can be thorough with a sense of humor and a sense of excitement and a sense of fun. It's possible to do that. Not to say that just by hearing it, you can do it. It takes training to learn to do that. Some people naturally have it. For a very long time, I didn't have that mindset, but eventually, through training and repetition and seeing the value it bring me, it's now become second nature.
Yeah.
Except one area. I don't do things that are physically dangerous. I'm not going to jump out of an airplane unless I'm strapped to Margot Robbie. And when we land, she's going to make a picnic for me, and then think up some creative ways to be nice.
All right, make the sale. No, you're talking about having fun.
Just one thing.
Sure.
I know that people tend not to listen to entire podcasts. So if I could drop in a gift right now, and we'll repeat it at the end of the podcast.
Sure.
If you want to get just the tiniest taste of what I have to train and teach, and just go out immediately and win with it, see right away that it can work for you, because I'm teaching something that's batshit nuts. You, the audience, have the right to try it on and see a result right away. I have my Rapid Sales Accelerator. It's totally free. The core of it, the center of it, is about a 15-minute video, 18-minute video training on crushing objections. Any objections, doing it rapidly in a fun way. And I can't be the one to stop and imagine for yourself how your sales would skyrocket if your most common objections are just wiped off the map. So that's the core of the training. There's also a PDF download of my book. So if you want to grab that, just go to paulrossbook.com. paulrossbook.com. It's completely free. And it's my way of giving and also getting people, interested. I have my own motivation. I want them to get a taste of what I do.
Awesome. Hey, Paul, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second.
Sure.
By day, I'm an insurance broker. And as such, I like to ask my guest question about risk. And by day, as an insurance broker, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk, and that's not an option. We look to see if there's a way we can minimize the risk. And if we cannot avoid nor minimize, we look to see if there's a way we can transfer the risk. And as such, I like to ask my guest if they can look at their own situation. Could be your clients, investors, the market, political winds, whatever you consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance-related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Paul Ross, what is the biggest risk?
I have to say it's context dependent, but if you were to ask me in general, broadly, the biggest risk that you can take is to be risk adverse and to need to get absolute clarity before you take an action step. If you're adverse to risk and you need absolute clarity before you act, then and risk can be an emotional risk, risking rejection. Although I never get rejected, I only discovered the lessons that I didn't know that I had to learn. So being risk averse, and as part of that, needing to be certain before you take a step into the unknown. See, if you can step into the unknown without needing a guarantee of success and let the other person give them radical permission to have their first response to you, then something magic opens, a doorway to grace, a doorway to results that you wouldn't otherwise get if you need a guarantee.
Awesome. Paul, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Well, again, they can go to Paul Ross' book if they want to get that 18-minute or so video training on crushing objections. If, and I really mean this, if you're already doing a high 7 or 8 figure net business and you want to talk to me about training you, again, because of the intense nature of what I deliver and the amount of work I put into it, I can only work with 3 clients a quarter. I take a quarter off every month of vacation. You can apply to work with me. It is not cheap. You get what you pay for. You can go to speaker Paul Ross /apply. I do vet you very carefully. We'll get on the phone. If I decide we're not a good fit, then I'll give you some actionable tips you can use right then and there, because I like training and teaching. If we decide we're not a good fit, great. I'll send you on your way with some actionable tips. I don't need to push or sell what I do because I'm at a point in my career where I can pick and choose. If you want to give that a shot, go to speaker Paul Ross /apply. And then finally, I have my own podcast, The Influencer's Edge. We have some very interesting guests. Sometimes we interview people. I think we've had 3 or 4 guests from intelligence agencies they've worked for, or they do work for CIA, FBI, and we talk about interrogation and mind control and brainwashing, not just sales. So it's pretty cool stuff. That's my podcast, The Influencer's Edge.
Awesome. Well, Paul Ross, I cannot say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've enjoyed talking with you, learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Till next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.